When did disruption become the new normal? It really makes no difference whether you're a startup or a Fortune 500 with a mission-critical need. Let's face it, with all the sourcing technologies in the world and no matter how many link contacts you've got in your network, like the rest of us, you're too busy and have enough to worry about without trying to deal with the headache that comes from some big procurement project. Oh yeah, and then there's sales automation, supercomputers with information on overload, and they're even spending time with some of the best sales consultants in the business can become, well, exhausting. Greetings, everyone, and welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. It's Friday, March 18th, 2016, and this is Tech Talk. On this edition, we're exploring the new normal, not the rapid speed of technology innovation, but the changing way you procure IT solutions. It's all about how does it save me time, how does it save me money. Looking for the IT solution can be a headache, especially if your goal is to reduce cost and complete the procurement process ASAP. It's a discussion about data center and telecom, and the big question, is there really a solution out there that you haven't found that could save you 20%? Or 30% in overall project cost, while at the same time get it done fast. Here for the Tech Talk on the procurement space for everything telecom and data center, we speak with Jake Sherrill, founder and CEO of Tier 4 Advisors. Jake founded the company in 2013, addressing this universal problem with a rather unique solution that has taken it to unprecedented growth and industry-recognized expert performance in over 300 different projects in a short 3-year history. From the cloud thing to what the new normal steps of doing a typical procurement process is in this rapidly changing, dynamic, disruptive environment of today's innovation economy. A special Tech Talk with insights and information you need to know from the backroom service storage facility to the front lines of the startup or Fortune 500. We go inside procurement and get the take from Tier 4 Advisors, founder and CEO Jake Sherrill. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Jake, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I think it's an important conversation for today. I think there's a lot of buzz, a lot of conversation centered around the cloud and the cloud thing, if you will. But, there's a lot of our listeners, while they're anxiously involved in it, there's still a large portion of them that are really kind of getting a grip on just exactly what it's all about and why. So let's start out with that. Let's talk a little bit in general about, let's call it the cloud thing. What's going on?
So the cloud thing is really a movement that you're starting to see with different companies to outsource their IT infrastructure to dozens, if not hundreds, of different providers that are out there in the marketplace. Historically, you've seen companies that own their own gear, their own hardware, their own servers. They plug them into the wall on-prem or in their own data center, and they would manage it themselves. Long story short, you're starting to see some different efficiencies in outsourcing that function. So rather than worrying about managing the gear or the data center itself, now companies are valuing the data of what is on those servers more so maybe than even managing and having the control of those servers, if you will.
Well, obviously, go ahead.
And it's benefiting those end users.
I was just going to comment that obviously, one of the old adages, if you either want to save me money or make me money, and I think it's a case where part of what I'm hearing you say is that you're able to leverage this whole evolution of change as far as hardware is concerned and almost kind of pass that part of it and deal with how's the best way to distribute the content or actually how to produce the content, and then the actual cloud environment is updated in some variation or another through whatever technology that allows that distribution of that content to be better served, therefore not costing me in terms of constantly managing or upgrading my equipment. Is that more or less one of the benefits?
Yeah, I mean, you see even, Fortune 50 companies that are now getting out of the business of buying hardware And, they're more so interested in the actual value of the data and, to your point, how it's being distributed, how it's being accessed, how it's being secured, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of efficiencies in business. You had the Industrial Revolution where every single every single, plant out there that was making stuff had their own power plant on site.
Yeah.
And then there was an efficiency where, the power came from the grid. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now in IT, where you see a lot of efficiencies, where people have their own data center on site. Now it's kind of becoming the Internet of Things or the cloud, whatever you want to call it, and it's making business a little bit better every day.
Well, help me now. I'm ready to do it. I've heard a lot about it. I've even been talking to some of my business associates, and they've talked about it. But, I'm kind of concerned. I'm concerned about letting loose of the control. I'm concerned about just exactly how does it all work, and maybe even from the other side of it, too, what about security, and how is my data going to be protected? Maybe tell us a little bit how you would answer some of those concerns on the part of someone who hasn't moved into the cloud yet.
Yeah, what you're starting to see is, and it's very interesting, especially in the small to medium space, is, some of these companies, let's call their revenue $20 to $50 million bucks. They have an IT team of 3 to 10 people, and these people are doing everything from fixing printers to ordering new laptops and managing iPads. And it's hard to understand or frankly expect them to understand how to secure your environment the way that some of these, quite frankly, cloud providers, and this is going to sound like a sales pitch for the cloud people, but it's not meant to be. But it's hard to expect them to compete with some of these larger organizations who have a security team 3 or 4 times the size of your entire IT team. And so that's where you see a lot of these clients the last 3-4 years hesitate to go to the cloud because of security concerns. Now people are going to the cloud because of security concerns. They are safer in the cloud, or at least some people feel like they are more safe in the cloud. Hospitals, law firms, credit unions, research institutes, they are more secure in the cloud than they are in their own data center because they don't even have a security person on staff. And these cloud vendors have a half dozen to a few dozen security-only people on their team.
Now, how about turnaround? Is there downtime? Do I got to be concerned about transfer of content and information? What's a typical project timeline look like? And maybe go into a little bit about the actual steps that might be in that process.
So, the downtime is obviously very tricky. And, I don't want to, again, sound like a sales pitch, but when we get involved in these projects, we have clients that, an hour of downtime can cost them anywhere from, a couple $1,000, and it's not that big of a deal because, we can do it over the weekend, to a company, frankly, that I met with last week, and, they would lose $500,000 a minute
Yikes.
of downtime.
Wow.
$500,000 a minute. So, obviously, downtime is not an option for a company that size.
Right.
And so you start having these conversations. But long story short, if you do this correctly, you should be able to spin up new environments, have very limited, if not, if frankly, have zero downtime, because a lot of it is just managing the migration and understanding really that, spinning up the right footprint. It's like moving from one house to another. If you're moving from a house, the square footage is the same and the layout's relatively the same, and you're just moving across town, it's a little painful to make the move, but you pretty much know where most of your furniture is going to go. If you're moving from a 10,000 square foot house to a 500 square foot studio apartment, now you've got some stuff to worry about, and you need to understand the ramifications of doing so, right?
Well, and I guess that's still part of it. So much of it when you're dealing with change and disruption, and there's so many things. I'm trying to run my business, and all I know is I'm constantly being hit up with something I really am not comfortable, but because I just don't, I'm a leader, I'm an enterprise owner, I'm not used to delegating, I'm kind of taking care of things myself, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to, quote unquote, trust someone with this. I guess where I'm headed is that do you kind of, how does the relationship work when you deal with something like this? When someone is calling you, I can kind of understand how they might already know about how this situation would work. But if there's someone who's just now, again, trying it out for the first time, what does that relationship look like as it relates to your communicating trust to them in order to let go of the branch, if you will, and move forward?
Yeah, and again, I referenced the sales pitch, and this is going to sound like one, but if you are just now exploring the idea, whether you use Tier 4 advisors or somebody else, you need to find someone that knows what they're doing in that space. Because going at this all by yourself is very risky, very time-intensive, and quite frankly, exhausting. But, let's say I had a client, to answer your question, that came to me, had never even done anything in this space, was just curious about it, figured it was the right move for the business. Long story short, by having an advisor in this space that manages 30 or 40 of these projects every single month, it's kind of like dealing with an attorney or a realtor who negotiates contracts every day, or a realtor who buys and sells dozens of homes every month. I mean,
how about a doctor that's done the operation before? I mean, it's that serious.
Exactly right.
Exactly. Go ahead. No, I was just.
So yeah,
I think it's that critical. Go ahead.
Yeah, when we get engaged, it is critical, right? I mean, you're talking about business applications, you're talking about IT infrastructure, you're talking about things that are now automated for a client experience, and you need to make a good choice for not only your business but also your clients, so that they don't, these types of projects, if they're done correctly, no one even knows they were done, because the end user sees nothing different. There's no downtime. Their screen color is still the same. Their email still works the same. It's all the piping and plumbing behind the scenes that no one ever sees until the pipes burst and you're flooded. Now you start paying attention to the plumbing, right?
Right.
No one ever wants to have that happen.
Well, the joke, the cliche about show me the money, and I think really when it gets down to it, once I feel comfortable and I know I got to make a move, the other side of it is right now I'm kind of doing what I've been doing. I'm used to what it's costing me in order to do it. What can I expect? Is there a way that you can actually put a price ticket on it, or is it each situation is different? I guess really the bottom line is, what would I expect to pay, and how does that model work in terms of is it a service fee, one-time basis, ongoing, and give us a little bit of detail about the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, so cloud is monthly reoccurring for the most part. The old model is you go out, you buy a server, you go install that server in a cabinet in your office, you plug it into the outlet, figuratively, literally speaking, and you let it just kind of help manage the business need over time, right? And it's kind of a lump sum deal. The piece that a lot of people don't understand are the soft costs, the management, the software, the patching, the security, the maintenance, and that is certainly something that you get with cloud for the most part, depending on what provider you pick. So we have hundreds of different providers in our database. They all do different things, and they all do different things better or worse than the next guy. But understanding what that is obviously part of really what people that are exploring this new world of cloud need to do. Back to your question of how it works, it's typically monthly reoccurring, a monthly reoccurring cost to your bottom line. But again, it's completely outsourced for the most part. If you do more of a managed public or managed private cloud, if you go with someone like an Amazon or a Google or some of these others out there that are just simply giving you infrastructure as a service, then the soft costs and the management piece are, obviously still there, depending if you're going to have that in-house or use a managed service provider. But again, I'm not trying to make it complex. It can be very complex if you don't understand it. But typically you need to have a conversation with an advisor that can really get down to the brass tacks of why you're doing it and make it a business reason, and then frankly guide you in the direction that you should go. And the project should be relatively easy to do, right?
Well, I'll tell you one thing for sure, Jake. I think there's been a lot of buzz about Tier 4, a lot of people feeling that you're doing something right. I know your growth has really been phenomenal in terms of a market that is growing pretty extensively, but also is highly competitive, which means that there's something about expectations and about deliverables that you are doing right. So hats off to you, Jake. Thank you for taking time out of what I know is a busy schedule to join us for a few minutes today on Tech Talk.
Well, great. Thanks again for having me. Again, I apologize that I had to step out from one of my client meetings to do this, but hopefully it's worth the time. And please, I highly encourage someone to reach out to us. If you have a cloud need, a data center need, anything telecom related, Tier 4 Advisors is your local expert here in the Atlanta market. We do have clients all over the world, and the website is tier4advisors.com.